Welcome in, everyone. This is the recruiting rundown here on Gamecock Central. Wes Mitchell and Kendall Smith joining you here. We hope that you're having a great week. So far, it's been a busy time recruiting-wise for South Carolina. So we are here to talk about all of that with you on the show today. But Wes, first off, how's it going for you? How is your May so far?
It's good. May is good. The recruiting official visit season has started a little bit earlier this year, Kendall. Typically, you have those 3 major weekends in June, but a little bit different this year. They did one the first weekend of May, and, we've just been kind of gathering information on that ever since. And so, it was good to get a little appetizer, a little preview of what's to come. So not quite as busy as it will be in June, but still obviously a lot going on.
Yeah, it's like the warm-up, I guess you could say. It's like the opening act for what is coming in June. But as we mentioned, there still are some pieces of news that we need to get into here today on the show. Actually, just about a week ago, last Friday, South Carolina receiving a new commit for their class of 2027. Welcome to Gamecock Nation, Judah Lancaster. He is from Brentwood Academy in Brentwood, Tennessee. 3-star tight end, Wes. And with South Carolina, I know they're obviously excited about this one, but what are they getting with him?
Yeah, I think you pop on the film, and first of all, a lot of these tight ends these days can sometimes just be like glorified bigger wide receivers, and then they come in and they have to learn all the other aspects of playing tight end. I think when you look at Lancaster, he is someone who you watch this film and you're like, hey, this is a physical kid. He's willing to be a blocker. He's willing to hit people. And, kind of is what I call a dual threat tight end. Like, he can do both of those things and is very, very comfortable doing it. And I think you look at Sean Elliott, who will be his position coach. Those two guys really hit it off early and just, I think, connected in terms of their mindset about things. And being a former O-line coach, being the kind of high-energy guy that we know Sean Elliott is, I think you have to have a certain level of physicality. You have to have a willingness to go block and hit people if you're going to play for Elliott. And so, Kendall, I think there's just a little bit of synergy here between the way Lancaster plays the game and the way Sean Elliott wants his position group to go play the game. So, still an athletic kid, can go catch the football, can make some plays for you down the field. He actually played at IMG last year before transferring to Brentwood Academy. That's always a loaded program, and they just have weapons all over the place. So he didn't put up like huge numbers last year because he was kind of one of many, many, many targets they had on offense. But I think we'll have a much bigger senior year in terms of production as a pass catcher. But in terms of what South Carolina is getting, this is your kind of prototypical modern H-back / tight end that you can move around but can also block and be physical for you. And maybe a little bit of a comparison to Mike Tyler, who South Carolina, of course, landed out of Hammond School here in Columbia and is going to play quite a bit for them this year. And I think the final thing I'll say is that when you first started looking at this guy, when we heard that, hey, he's probably going to be a Gamecock, he was listed some of the different places like 6'3", 210, 6'4", 210, but has actually grown since some of those numbers were taken and measured in at 6'4", 236 pounds on his official visit. So you're talking about, here we are, May 2026. He's a full year and some months away from when he would be making his college debut. Already that size and certainly a frame to continue to get bigger. And, I think that's a good sign. You're not talking about somebody who's going to have to come in and gain 40, 50 pounds to be productive at the SEC level. He's already started putting on some of that strength, some of that weight that will certainly help him at the next level.
I can't even imagine being 6'4". That would be so nice, wouldn't it? No, but that is a great thing for South Carolina, just to be able to have someone that you feel confident in from a physicality standpoint to come in and be successful. So a good pickup for South Carolina, a solid guy to have in this 2027 class, and obviously looking forward to doing what he does in his senior season. But not just him, right? South Carolina is trying to get a number of guys to commit, to pledge to the Gamecocks, and that really starts way beyond an official visit, but you're trying to close deals and official visits. You're trying to get guys to really understand what the program is all about, what life would be like as a South Carolina Gamecock. And we mentioned the OVs starting a little bit early this year. South Carolina just hosted a group of guys this past weekend on official visits. So, Wes, what's the word on how that went just from an across the board standpoint?
Yeah, 11 guys made it in. Lancaster was one of those guys. So he committed like literally within, the first night he was there. That was already planned. He'd already told the staff he was going to commit. So adding him in, you had 2 guys that were committed to South Carolina, and then the 9 others are either uncommitted or are, in the case of, I guess it would just be one of the guys, are committed to, another program, to an outside program. So 9 guys are trying to get to become Gamecocks. And I think, and we've reported on this quite a bit already on Gamecock Central, just a lot of positives from this weekend. Like, I don't think you can say any of the visits went poorly. South Carolina made a move with several of these guys. Now, I think the fascinating thing about it, Kendall, is going to be what are the pros and cons to having this kind of early visit? Do you set the bar high enough to where maybe there's something to be said for other schools? Like, if I go on a visit and it's just not as impressive, my mind goes right back to South Carolina. Like, that they set the bar for me. Whereas there is the kind of traditional thought of you always want that last visit, right? Like, you want to be the last lingering thought a prospect has before he makes a decision. So one thing I think we'll be taking a very, very close eye on will just be how many of these guys continue the process and take their future visits. You look at a guy like A.J. Randall, 4-star kid out of North Carolina. He's got visits lined up to schools in state like North Carolina State, but also to Georgia, to Ohio State, to really these like major programs, and has 5 more official visits on top of the South Carolina visit. Is not going to decide until June 30th. So you're kind of playing the long game there. Like, how long will those lingering thoughts and feelings from this visit stay with him? And then there's some other guys that I think you're kind of tracking where maybe they didn't commit on the weekend, but I think South Carolina made enough impression that we're kind of keeping an eye on. Do they even take some of these officials that were previously set, or do they decide, hey, I'm really just set on the Gamecocks? I think you look at one guy, Brandon Allen Jr., BJ Allen, he's committed to Mississippi State right now, cornerback, but I think South Carolina really did a fantastic job with him, made a big move, made a big impression. Kennedy Green, 4-star DB out of Georgia. South Carolina was the leader entering this weekend. They remain the leader there. It's just a matter of, how many other visits does he take? And then a 4-star running back, Braden Tyson from the state of Georgia as well. 4-star kid that I think South Carolina was in the mix with coming in, but exit the weekend potentially as the leader there. So, how many more visits does he take, and how does that factor in? I also think, Kendall, the other just major factor in all this, when you're talking about 11 guys this weekend, then probably about the same number each weekend that they have guys in June, which are the ones that South Carolina is pushing for, in terms of their internal board, that obviously they're going to kind of keep to themselves. And so there may be some guys where you say, well, they made a big impression, but they might be down the board a little bit, or there may be guys that they made a big impression, but like are top of the board players that they're going to push for regardless. So that is always a factor as well.
Well, it will be interesting to see how everything goes. And this is always such a great time of the year for recruiting. You find out so much. We get to hear from so many different guys about their experiences with South Carolina and just being a coach, right? There's so much that you are dealing with, not only with these official visits, but just across the scope of recruiting in general. And a guy that I feel like we have talked about for so long now that South Carolina really wants is Joshua Dobson. He is a 5-star. He goes to Huff High School, which is actually just right up the road from where I live in Charlotte, so a little bit closer to like Cornelius, Huntersville area. And it's interesting because a prediction was actually locked in this week by On3's Steve Wiltfong, just saying that he thinks that Dobson is going to Texas A&M. Wes, what's your reaction?
Yeah, I think And this got some reaction on Gamecock Twitter. And there's some prominent Gamecock Twitter folks who I enjoy quite a bit. But I will say the predictions are a prediction on where things stand at a point in time. You know what I'm saying? And that's kind of saying, hey, if Dobson were to decide today, I think he would be going to A&M, is what Wilt Fong was saying. So I'll remind people there was a prediction of, a couple months ago, I guess, coming off of a visit to LSU for Dobson to LSU. And we said at the time, let's wait and just let this thing play out. And so we were talking about, do guys go through the process? Do they take all their visits earlier? Dobson, to me, is someone who is going to go through the process. Like, he's going to take his visits. He's going to check every school out that he has strong interest in. And as of right now, South Carolina will get the last official visit here before he makes his decision. So I think this is kind of firmly in one of those categories where multiple things can be true at once, Kendall. Like, yeah, A&M has done a fantastic job recruiting him. And I think it's kind of like you could say LSU was South Carolina's biggest competition maybe a couple months ago. Now I think Texas A&M is probably South Carolina's biggest competition. But I really believe the Gamecocks are going to be in this thing to the end. I think they've made it very well known how important of a prospect that he is. They still really, I think, treat him like an in-state guy, even though he is now at Huff, was, of course, at Catawba Ridge there in the Fort Mill area earlier in his recruitment. And I'm just telling people, I'm not saying it's inaccurate, because I think Wilt Fong probably has really good information that he's getting that from. But I also, checking in, I think South Carolina feels pretty good about their positioning as well. And it's kind of the long game. Really, all that matters is who is in the lead when he makes his decision. And then, of course, ultimately when he signs, and even a little bit past that, when he arrives, what campus does a prospect arrive on and start classes? You know what I'm saying? So, because, we've seen, especially in basketball, I feel like we've seen guys be signed, and then it's just like, well, no, they got out of that. So who leads in the end is really what's going to matter. And Kendall, I think South Carolina will be in this one to the very end. And I think you got to look at recruiting a little bit differently too than you used to, especially with like the financial aspects to this whole thing. Like none of it really matters until you get to that final day when that final decision is made.
Yeah, no, 100%. We've seen that happen so many times, not only for South Carolina, but just various schools across the country over the years, especially in this new era of college football that we are in. So we'll see. I like your glass half full mentality, Wes. That makes me feel a lot better. And I think a lot of Gamecock fans needed to hear that as well. It's not over till it's over. And we know that South Carolina is going to see this one through all the way till the end, because this has been one of the highest priority targets for South Carolina for quite some time. So as always, we will keep you posted over on GamecockCentral.com. Follow Wes, follow Chris on X as well. I keep wanting to say Twitter. And don't forget, everyone, this is very exciting, a flash sale. You can get 3 months of content for just $1. That's amazing.
Do it. Just do it. It's $1.
Yeah, it's $1. Like, think about the amount of things you can buy in the world for $1 now. Not very many. So this is a great opportunity.
Kendall was just telling me before we came on that if you spend $1 and you're not happy after 3 months, she will reimburse you the $1. She didn't actually say that, but I mean, it's $1. It's $1.
It's just $1. So do it, because we have a lot of great premium content that you don't want to miss out on. So yeah, check us out, GamecockCentral.com. Follow us on social media at Gamecock Central. And we've got a lot coming your way over the next few months. Obviously, the school year is coming to an end and college athletics are kind of coming to an end. They're slowing down a little bit, but that doesn't mean that the summer slows down, especially when it comes to football and just all of the things that we have to talk about recruiting wise with the upcoming 2026 season. It's going to be a great time. So we hope that you join us for all of that. But Wes, thank you for your insight as always. Appreciate you. So glad to be here on the recruiting rundown with you, and glad that all of you joined us as well. We hope you have an amazing rest of your day, a great weekend. For Wes Mitchell, I am Kendall Smith, and this has been the Recruiting Rundown here on Gamecock Central. We'll see you soon. Fireworks. I want to go.